We're back. It's the DAZN Boxing Show. I go by the name of Bach.
And I'm Barack the Boxing Bully.
Hope you guys had an amazing weekend. A lot of fights to talk about. Some real good traditional boxing and some not so traditional. We're going to get into it all right now in the opening bell. I want to kick things off with what happened over at Showtime. Barack, Magsayo, Figueroa, very entertaining fight. But even before that, Jarrett Hurd made his return to the ring after about 21 months. If I'm not mistaken, a long time. Oh, man, I want to word this properly, Barack, because I like Jarrett. I think he's a hell of a fighter. He has a lot of tricks up his sleeve in there, but it seems like he hasn't got past that. He's worked with several different trainers, but hasn't passed that part of being of lacking in defense. And a lot of times people compare him to James Toney, which he does a lot of things that James Toney's done, but James didn't get hit as much. He knew how to evade those shots. I thought it was an entertaining fight, and it was the wrong matchmaking. That's all I have to say, Barack. For a comeback, that was a wrong opponent to come back to.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Does it mean that maybe the PBC don't believe in him anymore and they fed him?
Damn, how you going there?
Or putting him in a position to come back with a softer touch because he's an entertaining fighter and campaigning at 160. Why would that be after that long layoff, why would that be the opponent that Jarrett Hurd would have to face?
Well, first of all, we're talking about the former unified champion, the guy that went in there and fought Lara when really nobody really wanted to fight Lara, and he beat Lara convincingly. He outworked Lara, landing hundreds of punches on Lara, throwing 824 punches. That's Jarrett Hurd. You understand? So I can understand putting him in against a Resendiz who hasn't proven himself at all. He shows that he got some pop, nice work ethic, work rate, but that's Jarrett Hurd. That's why. We're so used to seeing what was transpiring in the fight, and then all of a sudden Jarrett Hurd takes over.
Right, but when you think about certain fighters, Barack, think about guys that are on an elite level or close to it. Anybody who's had that long of a layoff isn't fighting a guy like Resendiz. I'm sorry. He's not just, all right. He's a really good fighter with skills, and not only that, youth. He could take a shot. He was eating Jarrett's shots like they were breakfast, lunch, snacks.
That's the pedigree. That's the pedigree of Jarrett Hurd. He didn't want a soft touch. You understand? He wanted to prove himself. One of his last posts on Instagram is, "Do I still have it?" Fighters questions himself. They don't all do it publicly like Teofimo Lopez did, and actually that wasn't even publicly. The cameras caught it and people putting it out, and making fun of him. But we all question ourselves in periods of our lives. And I believe he thought, because of training, he thought he was that guy again. Now, bad matchmaking, maybe. No, maybe bad style by Jarrett Hurd, maybe. Because we also heard him say, you know what, I got to go back to that old Jarrett Hurd that used to box. Yes, yeah. I remember Jarrett Hurd before he walked everybody down. And think about it. Even when he walked everybody down, he was losing the fight. Harrison is a great point. He was losing the fight, and then he was able to stop Harrison.
I don't see him ever. I don't remember him ever being a great boxer. I think that
I'm talking about before he became famous. Like when I used to see him at the Barclays. Before he became famous, he was boxing.
Yeah, but he was fighting. He was fighting lesser opposition.
I followed his career, and he was able to box.
But it's easier to box a guy who's less skilled, and when you fight less opposition, you can play around and work on stuff that you worked out in the gym. When you fighting a guy that's on top,
but you could at least try. But he even said before this fight he was going to do more.
He tried.
And then he went back to the old style. He could have kept him on the
because he wasn't quick enough. You have to have certain level of speed to keep a guy off you because Resendiz was obviously faster.
But you also got to just move your feet. You also got to just move your feet and jab. Like he just wasn't trying to fight that way. Yes, I understand he's not as fast as Resendiz, but you don't have to be as fast to have good timing to keep your fighter away from you and also keep your distance with your feet. Not just the jab, but with your feet as well.
Right, but you know what I mean? Like, you resort, as a fighter, you resort to what works best for you. He's been able to break guys down. And there were moments in that, with all that being said, there were moments in that fight when I said to myself, I think Jared is going to break this guy down and get him out of there. Like I seen a couple of rounds where he started to land the right uppercut, started to dig in the body, and Resendiz kind of slowed down a little bit. So I thought that was the turn, but obviously youth kicked in his second win, and his will not wanting to lose, Resendiz that is, kept him in a fight, and then eventually he took over as well. But Jared still has great talent. He has some sneaky tricks on the inside that works against most people. But stylistically, Resendiz was not the guy. He was not going to allow that to break him down. And that's the difference. I still think Jared could probably beat certain guys out there.
Right.
You know, they're guys that work on the inside.
It's also a new weight class. It's 160. Right. I don't think guys
He's a big guy, though. He's not a small 160.
When things get tough, I don't think guys resort to what works for them. I think they just resort back to their habits, you know, and that's what Jared did. He just resorted back to his habit of what he was used to doing, and that's fighting on the inside, you know, and the shoulder roll just wasn't working against somebody who outworked him. That's the thing. He threw 200 punches more than him, you know, and that's the thing. When you're throwing 150 more power punches than Jared Hurd, then you can win, and that's usually not the case. Jared Hurd got outworked, and I hate that we just spent this time only talking about Jared Hurd, but he was the star. You know, he was the unified champ. It makes sense, but I gotta say,
it was the more entertaining fight. It was a more entertaining fight to
Jose Resendiz for proving himself.
And I'll say this, Barack, you know, a lot of people on Instagram were saying that Jared should retire. He's taking a lot of punishment. You know, I can't completely argue with that, but I understand the spirit of a fighter and him wanting to redeem himself after a loss, or show the people that, yo, you're wrong about me. I do still have it. So he has some tough decisions to make. He has been in a lot of wars. He can take a good shot. That's not necessarily a good thing. You know, you want to evade and stay away from punches in this sport. I hope he makes the right decision. I still think he has something left in the tank, but I don't like seeing him getting hit the way he did. So we'll see. I'm a big Jared Hurd fan.
I agree with that part. I don't like to see him get hit a lot, you know, but there's two things I want to say. One, you said bad matchmaking, possibly. I remember when Bernard Hopkins was up in age, but he was still winning. But there was always guys who gave him trouble, and that was those really fast, athletic guys, the Chad Dawsons, you know, and guys like that. Jermaine Taylor, guys like that gave him trouble, even though I thought he won that Jermaine Taylor first fight, Bernard, you know, but still those kind of guys gave him trouble. So stylistically, so yes, it could be something stylistically. And also I feel like only the fighter really knows whether he should retire, because he'll know if, okay, I can't pull the trigger. Okay, this wasn't working for me. Or he'll say,
I don't know about that. I didn't listen to my corner. I don't think the fighter always knows. I don't think the fighter always knows.
So, but they know what happened in the ring is what I'm saying. Right. So they know either they just couldn't pull the trigger. Some fighters feel like, all right, I couldn't pull the trigger. It's time to retire. Or I didn't listen to my corner, or I had a bad game plan. I should have just boxed. I should have just did this. So it's really up to them to look back at the fight, see what they did wrong, and understand whether they can make a change or not.
Speaking of changes, moving on to the main event, when you talk about Figueroa, Magsayo, you knew it was going to be an entertaining fight. Yeah. Obviously, Figueroa came up with the winning unanimous decision. Can Magsayo make some changes and get back to the point where he was when he beat Gary Russell Jr.? Because it seems like, you know, he's on the shorter end of the stick. I thought he had some good moments in that fight. The fight lacked something. I don't like really clear, effective punching. I thought it was busy, but when I talk about clear, effective punches, like clean blows landed, it was just, and credit to Figueroa, great fight. He fought his style. He switched to southpaw plenty of the times, and at times that was effective. Is Figueroa elite enough to fight the other elite fighters in the world and be just as successful? Or is Magsayo not the guy we thought he was?
I don't want to say that. I don't want to say Magsayo is not the guy we thought he was. I thought Ray Vargas was going to win that fight, and he did, but it was a good fight. I thought this fight was very competitive. Figueroa family, they usually outwork their opponents. That's exactly what Brandon did. He outworked them. He smothered the heck out of them. And even when I think Jim Gray asked Magsayo beforehand, is there anything that you're worried about or anything that you have to look out for? And he said, pressure.
Right.
And that's because he knew that the pressure was going to be on him. He knew that Figueroa was going to pressure him all 12 rounds, and that's exactly what Figueroa did. And it's just hard to fight guys like that. And I think that Figueroa already proved that he's elite when he fought Stephen Fulton.
No doubt, no question about it.
Stephen Fulton won that fight, but it was a competitive, close fight. And so and he was a champion already. So he already proved that he's on that elite level. I think he's earned a rematch eventually with Stephen Fulton, even though Stephen Fulton got great things to look
bigger
forward
fish to fry. He got bigger fish to fry. But that was my next question. I mean, has Figueroa earned himself to be back in the mix to fight the winner of NOA and Stephen Fulton?
No, not that, because you want to see an undisputed champion. You want to see an undisputed champion at 122 pounds, super bantamweight. So I say, you're there now. You're there. Fight another fight. Let NOA and Stephen Fulton fight. Winner of that, fight for all 4 belts, and then maybe you get the winner of that.
All right, Barack, let's talk about what happened over DAZN with DAZN X series.
So hold on, before you go, let me tag you in. Okay, now you go.
Got you. All right, look, let's get into the tag team. I'll jump into that right away because that's something everybody was critical over. And I found it to be very entertaining, Barack, and not so much from a boxing standpoint, but just from how when inexperienced fighters have a way out. So let's talk about Ice Poseidon. That's the guy who every time he got hit with a shot, he tagged his partner. He looked for his partner. He actually he was fighting at that corner most of the night just so he could tag his guy. And credit to Luis Pineda, who came out like a savage. He didn't even want to tag his opponent in B. Dave. And B. Dave is another savage. Those guys walk through their opponents. But the funniest thing in the world was those guys, every time they got hit with one shot, they looked to tag Barack. Hilarious.
Generation Ice. Oh, my God. I think Pineda was upset. He came in there with a chip on his shoulder, being one of the 2 guys KSI beat in the same night, and said, I'm going to beat these 2 guys by myself. I'm going to beat Vargas, and I'm going to beat Poseidon by myself. He's the only guy that really has the experience in it, even though he's pretty bad fighter as well. Yeah, terrible. But he got the most experience in there, so he was trying to take them both out. It was an ugly scene. But I look at it like wrestling, because it really, really was like wrestling. It's something that's entertaining. Now, do we have the right?
I enjoy it more than wrestling. It's way more entertaining than wrestling to me.
But it's also something that's very dangerous too, because wrestling is staged and it's choreographed. So it's dangerous. So my first instinct is to say, you know what? You can't play with boxing. But then I'm like, I watched it and I was entertained because, we do like to see people fight, no matter how sloppy it is, But at the end of the day, it's like they were fighting and they are taking on the same risks that everybody else is taking on in the real sport, so to speak. And they are training hard for the fight. They just lack the skill set.
And experience.
And we're making it kind of gimmicky with this tag team thing. But I do say one thing about this. People have the right to like or dislike whatever they want. But you don't really have the right to say, this is not boxing or this is not boxing. Like, you can't say Jake Paul is not a boxer if he's now fought a boxer.
Right, you have the right and the prerogative to not watch it.
And and in this particular sport, you don't have to be good to be called a boxer. That's the thing. Sorry, And this is the thing. Like, people complain about Floyd and say, oh, I hate Floyd's style. He's not this. He's not that. Meanwhile, he's the best. Yeah, he was the best of our era. Like,
I don't want to stay too long on this.
So you can like or dislike, whatever. But I'm just saying, imagine Al Bernstein giving the keys to victory on this for Generation Ice. To be like, well, I guess you just keep tagging your partner because you both suck.
No, but I'm glad you brought that up, because that's the difference there. Like, we're not going to get a guy like Bernstein giving the keys to victory, because that's not what this is about. But at the same time, you have to respect the fact that these guys are really fighting with no headgear and gloves. Most of the guys will probably never fight again, or a lot of the guys won't, because once you're in there, it's a different story. This is a vicious sport, but don't undermine it too much to the point where you say, like, to your point, it's not boxing. They're actually fighting. They're just not experienced. But it was entertaining. Moving on to the main event, you talk about Jay Schwingler and your man, Nick Lamau. First off, I'll say this right now. I thought Nick won that fight, Barack. I'm sorry, he landed the more clean, effective punches. Yes, some of the punches that Jay landed were, he was in his hometown, so the crowd roared every time he landed a shot, and Nick kind of flew across the ring sometimes, or his head kind of went flying when he got hit, but he did not get hit as much and as clear as Jay got hit. So I thought that he won the fight nevertheless. Super entertaining. I mean, these guys got tired. They were going back and forth. That's why I don't want to disrespect these young men that don't have any experience in this vicious sport, and they're in there trying their hardest, even gassed out, trying to stay in the fight. So credit to that kid, Nick, who obviously fought a guy that was a little bit more experienced than him, but I thought Nick did a good job. I thought he did enough to win.
Well, because of, their lack of experience or whatever, or because they're getting gassed out so quick, because if you watch the whole broadcast, you've seen the heavyweights get gassed in the first round. I'm talking about the first minute, so you wonder how much preparation they're actually putting into this. You can't play around with this sport. I keep saying that. But as far as Nick and Swingler, it's about body language, I think. I think body language is very, very important when it comes to the judging aspect of boxing. And yes,
I don't think it should. I don't know.
I don't know the CompuBox. I don't know the CompuBox numbers, but I do know that Nick looked bad when he got hit, and that probably swayed the judges. But it was a majority decision, so one judge was like, "Hey, it's a draw." But also Nick looked a little bit more winded. He was just throwing his arms around. He just looked really, really bad. It kind of reminded me of Triple G versus Daniel Jacobs. Like Daniel Jacobs probably landed more shots, probably won more rounds, but he looked really tired. He looked really, really tired during that fight. Right. And that's how Nick looked during this particular fight. Yeah. So, he might have landed more punches. I don't know. I wasn't counting them, but he kind of looked defeated.
Right. Well, I mean, I disagree, but I thought credit to Jay Swingler. Great fight. At the end of the day, the Zone X series was very entertaining this past weekend. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to the next one. I'm sorry, folks.
You're fighting in the next one, aren't you? Aren't you fighting in the next one?
I'm working on it. All right.
I want to see you fight Luis Pineda. That's how I want to see you fight. We might have to fight a tag team.
I'm trying to end this damn show.
You're probably going to be like Vargas. You're probably going to be like Vargas, and Vargas didn't want to tag back in. Vargas was looking around like, I don't want to tag back in.
Yeah, you go out there and finish this fight. Yo, peace and love, yo. We out of here.
Introducing the new DAZN Boxing Show podcast. No matter the time or the place, getting your boxing content has become easier than ever. Tune in as we give you exclusive insights, predictions, fight night recaps, and more alongside the biggest names in the game. All for free. Available globally every Thursday across all audio streaming platforms and with new episodes dropping weekly to give you the latest news. Just type in the DAZN Boxing Show podcast, listen in, and enjoy.